And the Lord hit me across the chest with a baseball bat, and he said, "You're an addict." Hi, and welcome to Storia, where storytellers disrupt. I'm Fabiano Altamura.
And I'm David Noronha.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, download, and leave us a comment. So today, bro, what are we chatting about?
We're talking about disciplines.
Ooh, that's not sexy.
It's not sexy, no. And a lot of artists, I would suspect, I know for me, this was true for many, many decades of my life. Discipline was a 4-letter word. So, but I know
What was that 4-letter word?
Not a good one. Not one that's allowed on this episode. Here's my question to you. What was your, I know that we've both been on a journey because we function as brothers, almost work wives. We tend to kind of track in life quite often. Mm-hmm. We go through similar themes and similar things. But prior to this kind of renaissance that you and I have been going through, which we'll get on the back half of this, what was your perspective in your younger years as an artist on discipline?
Dude, I don't know if it was ever modeled to me. I don't think discipline was modeled to me. I think that I would rebel against discipline because I felt that it would put me in a box, and I didn't want to be in a box. And I don't know why I didn't want to be in a box. I just knew I didn't want to be in a box. I felt restrictive. So whenever anybody would come with like schedules, or anybody would come with, ideas of being very methodical, I would tend to rebel against it to my detriment.
But here's the fascinating thing that I want to say up front at the top of it. The truth of the matter is that a lot of creatives are rewarded for not following the rules. So do you have any distinctions around when you say, well, I rebelled against anybody that laid down rules for me? Were there types of rules that you would follow, but others that you wouldn't? Was it a consistent rebellion against all rules?
I don't think I wasn't an anarchist or anything like that, because I was a believer. So I obviously adhered to the rules of the Bible.
So what kind of stuff would you push against? Like, what kind of stuff would get thrown your way? I mean, you mentioned schedules. What else? What would get thrown your way? Would you be like, no, I'm not doing that?
I don't know, because it was weird, because at times I was exceptionally disciplined, like with my acting disciplines, very disciplined, but I don't know if I can pinpoint it, but it was like the moment somebody started to superimpose things that I should do, I would rebel against it.
All right, here's my question for you. Knowing that you're an Italian and you're a believer, was your willingness to be disciplined tied to something that you felt passionate about, that you were having an emotional, passionate response? Because I know you to be a passionate believer and a passionate actor. So were you willing to be disciplined about things that you were passionate about?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. To an extent I was, yeah. And I think everything else was just a deficiency in my character.
That's pretty
You know what I'm
honest
saying?
of you to say.
It's like, because I realize, I mean, we're gonna fast forward, and now I'm a very, very, very different person to where I used to be. But I don't know if I just don't know if I had a value for it. And I wouldn't say in every area of my life. I think the disciplines of spirituality, very much so. But I felt that there were parts in me that didn't want to be brandished as the stereotypical Christian in the entertainment industry. So I think here's what I think I rebelled against was certain conventions. Like, I wanted to be hip and cool, and I would definitely, it was definitely not black and white. I was definitely pushing the gray and sometimes way into the colorful. But I think that in doing that, I think I made too many mistakes. And I tell you where I think that maybe showed up was definitely in my parenting, because I didn't want my kids to feel that their dad was a traditional pastor, actor. So I would maybe push a little bit of that rebellious spirit onto them, which sounds really bad. Hearing it for the first time that I'm saying this, and I'm saying it to all our listeners, this is kind of weird, but it emerged, dude, like in my parenting. And I think it definitely emerged in the first few years of BCA, dude. Tons of messes, bro.
I respect your vulnerability. That's not an easy thing So here's the irony, and I don't know that I've ever, I guess this is the very special confessional episode of Storia. Yeah. Here's something I don't think I've said to you. I think if people would have looked at Fab and I as we were co-leading in these kinds of things, whether it be in the school or whatever, I think I would have appeared, there's more truth coming on the back end of this. I would have appeared as the one who was willing to follow the conventions and to behave and to maybe embrace certain disciplines. But I think I was lying to myself, and I think I was lying to the people around me, because I what was really happening for me was that I was not well. Mm-hmm. And then what I would do is I would behave and pretend in public, but be very unhealthy back at home.
Yeah. What does that look like?
For me, it was drinking too much. Yeah. If I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Please do.
For me, I realized that there were certain things I was going to numb myself because I was in so much pain. We were navigating some things in our family. Work and starting a school was incredibly difficult. I wasn't in community and in relationship with men in the way that I had been in my earlier walk with the Lord. Because I was surrounded by people, and quite often leadership can be pretty taxing and draining, I didn't feel safe to go anywhere. And certainly I had a lot of good friends, you included, that I think would have lent a willing ear and all. But here's the point. The point was, for me, it was my relationship to pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, while going through one of the more painful seasons of our life, of our marriage, of our family, that's when I found myself numbing, either with too much alcohol, watching a lot of content and stuff like that, which is the way that I would kind of just, zone out and numb out. And I wasn't exercising, I wasn't eating well, I wasn't sleeping well. So I just wasn't taking care of myself. And there were so many good people that I think, well-intended, were trying to say to me, are you okay? Are you okay? And I had this real grind attitude. And the problem is I think I was confusing discipline with grinding.
Yeah.
Because it manifests like somebody who's just working hard. Mm-hmm. But disciplines, I actually think, look deeper under the hood. But before that, I go there, for me, I want to kind of bounce back for you to the extent that you want to share. What was the turning point from what you've described as rebellion towards this embrace or this new affection towards disciplines, plural, in your life? What was the turning point for you, man?
I think I may have shared this on another episode, but I think it was in so we're 2023 now, it was 2022. It was June the 5th, and I was in Italy, and I was sat down in this beautiful resort that my cousin owns in the south of Italy, and sat down. Claire was there, had a glass of wine when I used to drink. And the Lord hit me across the chest with a baseball bat, and he said, "You're an addict." And
was he referring to alcohol?
No, he was referring to busyness, like you said. So I would medicate by throwing myself into work to prove and to numb the pain. But I would also, and then he said to me, you said you're addicted to business, but you medicate with alcohol, social media, cigars. Mm-hmm. And you treat your wife like an employee, and you preach a message you don't live. And that was a real turning point for me. God in his grace and how amazing he is showed me. And if I actually say now, I think I would actually admit that I was an alcoholic. Functional, not like going and getting drunk. I wasn't, but I would use it to medicate. And I think if we use anything to medicate, it is an addiction.
It's an addiction.
It's an addiction. So I just stopped everything. That was the biggest turning point for me, that I actually realized I was a rebel. And I would rebel against any convention, the convention of the church. Why can't we do this edgy material? We have to be something that we're not. And it wasn't coming from a place of health. It was coming from a place of absolute rebellion. And I don't know why I was rebelling, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know if I knew why. I felt out of control. I felt like I was in survival mode for so many years and making so many messes with you, messes with our staff, messes with our students, and realizing now that I am actually very, very methodical. And these disciplines are a lifesaver. They're not meant to box you in. That if you look, and I just went about studying the top performers, whether that be in sports or whether that be in investments financially. And I realized everything that they were doing, I had actually started to do without knowing it. So breathing, meditation, stretching, all these things, it's universal. The things that the habits, the habits and boundaries, right? Not working after certain times and being intentional with my family and my kids, that you think, gosh, Fab, man, you came to this so freaking late in life. Look at the years wasted. So now having to deal with not living with the shame of that, you know, and all those kind of things. And now I came up with a system, funnily enough, you taught me systems and the value for it, actually, you taught me that. And I put systems in place now religiously, because if I don't, then I'm still good to be around, but they don't serve me, because life is made of laws, and the laws, if you break them, have consequences. Like, you know, like I use this a lot when I'm teaching. It's like, you know, laws don't care about how you feel. If you're black, white, Italian, Cuban, and you all stand on the top of a building and you feel like you want to jump off, the law is you're all going to die.
I feel like a bird. I feel like a seagull, Fab. Tell me I can fly.
The law of gravity is no respecter of people, and the law of disciplines is no respecter of people.
I have to tell you, man, so I've been walking with this guy for over a decade. We did School of Ministry together. We felt both the simultaneous call of the Lord. You can check that out in the early episodes of Storia. And I saw this profound change in you. I mean, we had navigated through some tough moments, you and I, we have businesses together. We run a school together. Our kids are friends. They have a world-class podcast. Our wives are friends. Like, I mean, literally there's not one aspect more of our life that we can intertwine. I think the best of people, under the healthiest of circumstances, would be challenged.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because our relationship, like Danny Silk says, I mean, it's beyond a leather belt at this point. It's like made of titanium or, you know, some special metal from Mars. But I saw this profound change in you, and it was actually, first of all, beautiful to behold. It was completely real, and it was not budging. It was only getting better and better and more beautiful. And I just kind of sat there as I was still kind of in the season of beginning to come out of pain. And I don't think I've said this to you, but you were one of the major inspirations to me to start really looking honestly at parts of my life. I think in a little bit of a different way to you, I think what started me towards this path towards healing was the pain that we were in because of some family stuff. And I don't think that I had ever been in that. I think maybe only one or two other moments with which I've shared, the Jersey Boys, but this was even more because it had to do with my family. It was deeply, profoundly, physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically painful. And so my domino effect was watching my brother have this profound epiphany and revelation that was visible every day at work. So I couldn't escape it. I was just watching you transformed. And then I think I've shared little pieces here and there, but I felt in church one day this call to the front of the church, and it was Haley Braun who was preaching. And I can't recall if I've shared, but suffice it to say that I went and I knelt at the front of Bethel Church, and there was kind of like a spiritual altar call, because it wasn't one for salvation, if we wanted more of Holy Spirit. And I just remember the Lord saying to me, "You're supposed to go out there." It was only me and another girl for like 5 minutes. And I had all of these challenges around, like, I didn't want Bill to think that I was just going up there to show off in front of him and act all holy or something. Like, it needed to be real. But there was this weight in my gut that I needed to go. And so I went ahead and I stepped into the aisle. This other girl kind of stepped into the aisle as well. We both knelt. And the Lord said, "There's an earthquake coming." And I reached up towards, and I had this profound experience with the Lord that shook me for hours and hours and hours and hours. And when I asked the Lord later, like, why so violent? He said, "Because you were so disappointed in me. I had to shake the disappointment out of you." So for me, what I was trying to numb in no small way was actually my deep disappointment. We came up here chasing Jesus. This stuff that we were navigating was not supposed to happen to us. Not in my thinking.
Yeah.
And so there was deep disappointment. What I didn't understand about earthquakes that he told me later, I said, why so violent? Why an earthquake? He said, because I destroy anything that doesn't belong to me. Systems and structures will fall. And the only things that remain after an earthquake that I bring is what I made. So he shook the disappointment out of me. And then this is the thing about the Lord, because you don't know why. It's like when somebody tells you a circle is round, you're like, yeah, I knew that. Why is it that right now, this moment, on the other side of that experience, all of a sudden I really understand what it is that you're saying to me about all of the obvious things? And so much like you told me about Wim Hoff breathing. We started doing Wim Hoff breathing, started talking about cold plunging. And slowly, I had to first get honest. I had to confess to my wife that I was numbing myself out, which she, of course, knew.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? How other people know, but we don't.
Yeah. And you're like, I just had this amazing revelation that I've been numbing myself. And my wife, God bless her, she was just like, I know, babe. I know you have. But you wouldn't listen to me. And my wife's not a nagger. She just, no, she just doesn't nag. So she'd be like, oh, okay. I guess that's not too much that you've had tonight. You're going to stay up that late? Really? Didn't you say yesterday that you hadn't slept enough? So all of a sudden, from you, from the Lord, there were all of these calls to action. All right, so let's gear shift into, so we talked about where we were, our relationship with discipline and pain and all of these kinds of things and why we got here. Talk me through some of the disciplines, man. How do you start your days today?
So I go to bed at 10. I get up at 4:30.
Wow.
And I came to this revelation that you can't eat the elephant all at once.
That's good.
And I started small wins. And I
what did a small win look like in the first few weeks for those that are thinking, hey, I think I want to make some changes? What were some of the first small ones?
I think a lot of people want to try and see the miraculous change over, a week. And they spend like, oh, if I can't do it for 2-3 hours, I'm not going to do it. So I just started spending 15-minute chunks. And I literally get up, I put my audio Bible on for 15 minutes. And when it's done, I'll go to the end of the chapter and I stop. Then I spend 15 minutes praying or kind of visualizing the life that I want to live by design, not by let life happen to me, which happened for 47 years prior to that. And then I do 15 minutes where I'll meditate and I'll put something in my ears and I'll just listen. It's all about abundance. And I do that all the time. And then I'll spend 15 minutes declaring the word of God over my children, 15 minutes in adoration, just taking scripture, not asking God of anything, read scriptures, put their names in places. And then, I spend 15 minutes going through my finances every single day because I'm leaning into the fear that I may have had over them. And I work on on my family budget. And then this is one thing where I'm bad at. I started 15 minutes writing every day because I wanted to write a book, but that's one thing that goes out of the way. And then I spend 15 minutes stretching. And then I'll probably go on and try and get my 10,000 steps in. And then I'll work out in the afternoon. So all those disciplines and I'll do my breathing. Sorry, I do my breathing as well. They become euphoric. I'll get in the shower. I'll do a cold shower. And those disciplines every day are what set me up. And the thing is, by the time I get up, everybody's still asleep. And I achieve more in those couple of hours, because I do a couple of hours. I achieve more in those couple of hours than most people will do in a day. And it sets me up to be the husband that I want to be. It sets my mind in that right place because now, I haven't been triggered probably for 18 months. And if I have, I'm quick to put it right. My connection time with my wife on that 45-minute walk is all about connecting to her heart, blessing her in the pain of what I may cause her. Because listen, you can have that encounter with the Lord, but the life outside hasn't changed. And you still have to walk it through. And you still have to put things right. And it takes time. People are watching. how am I going to build that trust up? Because I may have done it before for like 2, 3, 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I go back to exactly the same way. The patterns weren't broken.
Yeah, you're building trust.
You're building trust again. Trust with yourself. Trust with your employees. People are looking at you in our positions of leadership.
By the way, I mean, you bring up something really important. I mean, we often talk about breaking trust with other people, but I think we break trust with other people after we've broken trust with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of building belief back in what you say you're going to do, what you tell yourself you're going to do, is probably the biggest trust exercise you will ever do. You can't have trust with someone else.
No.
You always break trust with yourself before you break it with somebody else.
Yeah, especially if you've had that cycle of where you've tried it before and it doesn't work.
You just don't believe yourself.
No, you have to keep yourself accountable with friends. I mean, in men's group, I keep myself accountable to you. And I was like, said to Claire, I'm going to fail. But I think it was when I started, everything in life is by design.
Mm-hmm.
What you plant, you will reap an investment on. It's going to happen. If I choose to buy a coffee every day, right?
Yeah, you'll have $100.
And I choose not to save it.
Yeah,
that coffee's worth $2.4 million over a period of like 20 years.
Wow.
So
thank you, Starbucks.
Right. You know what I mean? So now I'm intentional with my saving. I'm just intentional with everything because, especially with my thinking, repentance is changing the way you think.
Yep.
So I try now very intentionally not to let things in my mind that I don't want to see manifest.
Yeah, because then you got to undo them. You got to go clean up the mess.
You have to clean up the mess. So now all I do is, and people will be like, oh, you believe in manifestation, visualization. Like, just read the Bible, man. Look at the stars.
It's reaping and sowing, man.
So
it's reaping and sowing.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I have very specific things that I'm going after, what I want to earn, what I want to see. And even though I may not see it now, I'm looking at it because that's what I want to align myself with.
Listen, man, this is a basic, it's so funny what we get offended at, what we're afraid of in the church. All of these things that we're talking are biblical. Listen, I mean, we've got problems with breathing because maybe it feels too much like meditation or yoga, except that, the first thing that God does to Adam is to literally fill him with
breath,
ruach, with breath.
Yep.
So all of these things, the reason why there's benefit in them is because they're biblical first. And I think one of the things that we talk about at Bethel, which I actually appreciated because it helped me undo a lot of the things that I didn't realize. A, I believe, because I came from a very New Agey background, but B, that I didn't realize, ironically, that Christians would also have a problem with later on because they see them as other things. And, the best thing that the devil can do is to counterfeit a really good thing.
Of course it is.
So that way then he can deceive the church and then we stop doing really great things like, I don't know, breathing and treating. So I was inspired very much by you. I remember when you first talked to me about Wim Hof and that you were doing it. Now, I had checked out Wim Hof, and I'm sure that people are going to be pissed off because, I don't know, they think this or that about Wim Hof. I don't care.
Yep.
It has changed. It has changed my life. I first saw it. If you actually want to check out Wim Hof, he's known as the Iceman. There's lots of cool things that have been said about him. Like, I think that he got injected. This was under scientific study and oversight. He got injected by the Ebola virus, a diluted thing. Him and several of his followers, I think he did it first, and then others that are kind of his practitioners that practice his style of breathing. Did it, and all of them were able, their immune systems, and this is under observation by doctors. But I actually checked out a video that my son Knight turned me on to, a group YouTubers called Yes Theory.
That's crazy. The one where they climbed up.
Where they climb up with the thing with just like boots and they go in. I mean, it's somewhere in Poland or Eastern Europe or something like this. I mean, we're talking full on blizzard, Eastern European cold plunging. And then he also does the breathing. All right. So here's the thing that doesn't often get talked about. But if you look under the hood of a lot of these practices, whether it's the cold plunging, which I know is very trendy now, and whatever, both of which we do both of these things. Okay. The thing that I love about it that spoke to me deeply on an emotional and a spiritual level, which God was already talking to me about, was, again, going back to this concept of my relationship with pain. There's also a documentary by Jonah Hill where he interviews his therapist, Stutz. And Stutz, this older Jewish man, got these amazing revelations around human beings' relationship with pain. And I realized that was actually how God started speaking to me was, you do these things when you're in pain. So I need you to start noticing when you're in pain. The problem is when you're a self-punisher.
Yeah.
you don't actually call things by what they are. Mm-hmm. So I was saying, no, I'm just working hard. Mm-hmm. I'm just tired because I'm a productive person. There was pride wrapped up in this as well, and self-abuse. And so then all of a sudden I started realizing, oh no, I'm just in a tremendous amount of pain, and I'm avoiding my family because I'm in pain. I'm avoiding my finances because I'm depressed and ashamed by them.
Yeah.
Okay. So now well, you start the breathing. What on earth does that have to do with pain? Well, when you hold your breath, it turns out for really long periods of time, and you can start off, there's a bunch of different videos out there, some by Wim Hoff, some by others. You start by there's some where you hold your breath for 30 seconds and a minute and a half. All right. The longer you hold your breath, however long you end up doing it, it doesn't matter whether it's holding your breath. My wife does it for a minute and a half, whatever. Mm-hmm. The thing is that you start to teach your brain you're not going to die. Mm-hmm. Because it turns out that when you hold your breath and you're not breathing, which is one of the first things we've got to do every day, we don't even think about it. When you don't breathe, your brain goes into this response where it believes it's going to die. Mm-hmm. And when you prove to it, going back to building trust with yourself, no, actually, even when I hold my breath and I'm not breathing, I'm not going to die. Mm-hmm. Now, for me, what I do, I don't know what you do in these quiet moments when you're holding your breath. Right now, I'm parked on just repeating the fruit of the Spirit. So I actually use it as a kind of prayer, meditating on God's words, His principles, and I just repeat them while I'm holding my breath.
Yeah.
And it becomes transcendent, euphoric.
Yeah. 100%.
It becomes this intimate, quiet time with the Lord where everything else just shuts. Because you know what? When your eyes are closed, the room is dark, and you're holding your breath, and you're only focused on God's word, dude, I mean, I've come face to face with Him in those moments. I've sometimes come out, I've shared this with my children, my wife, and they're convinced it's actually really dangerous and horrible. There have been times where I hold my breath so long, I black out. I know, a little crazy, but I'll come to with tears in my eyes and realize that I've had this experience with the Lord.
Yeah. It's ecstatic.
Right?
In
the ancient sense of the word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's, when I do, I mean, I've not held it as long as you. I get to like 250 and I just can't feel, but I've just resigned myself to the fact that's great. I'm good. Like 250 is awesome. But sometimes I'll find myself falling asleep and then coming to, but the level of peace
is crazy,
is unbelievable.
And it's palpable.
It's palpable.
And you carry it with you for the rest of the day.
You do. And that's the thing, is like, to be in peace, that's the reason why I do these things. Because I want to come to school and be the example of what I'm teaching. So when God tells you you're preaching a message you don't live, I have to get back to living the message that I preach.
Yes, you do.
So I think that in all those things, and you know what? Boundaries have become a big thing to me. And it's one thing that you have to be okay with, knowing that what you did before and the standard that you set before, you're not going to do now.
No, there's going to be some people who are disappointed or frustrated or whatever.
Of course, exactly. But I'm not going to go back to where I was.
Yeah. But it's a kind of disappointment that is actually going to end up being beneficial for them and for you as well. All right, cold plunging, another one. I've gotten a little bit of obsessed. I just decided to turn my addictive personality on good things pretty much. I was watching the Beckham documentary, and one of the European players, I can't remember his name, he said something that really resonated with me. He said, all athletes, and I consider artists to be a species of athlete, if you're really serious about your craft, he said, are secretly addicts. The question is what are you addicted to? So, if you're obsessed with Jesus, if you're obsessed with, here's the deal, man, you can't be Christ-like, a peacemaker, which is what he calls us to be in Matthew. You can't be a peacemaker unless you carry peace. It's interesting how we try to convince ourselves I'm supposed to behave like a peacemaker, but I'm actually a mess maker on the inside, is really what I am. All right, so cold plunging, it's another one. This is where I was listening to the Huberman podcast. He's a scientist out of Stanford. If you've not checked out Wim Hoff or Huberman has these 2-hour, he's like the Joe Rogan of science and health. they've been doing some long studies on why cold and heat and the contrast. So the Europeans have been doing this for a long time. You and your people have been doing saunas and cold plunging for a really long time. And there's these beautiful rituals of cycling through heat and cold. And depending on the time of day, you can end on heat if you want to go to bed. You end on cold if you want to be, vibrant throughout the day. Check this out. 2.5 hours of long tail natural dopamine high from just being in cold water for 3 minutes. So I was up to, 4 or 5 espressos, easy, fully addicted to coffee. Started doing the breathing and started doing the thing, and then decided, hey, this coffee thing, it is jacking me up.
Yeah.
So I cut out the coffee. Normally I go into headaches and almost like a kind of depressive state, if I'm going to be totally honest, for about but I was doing the breathing in the cold plunge. Here's the deal. I hit the cold plunge now. I built one out of a chest freezer in my own home, but you can do it at a gym if there's a kiddie pool during the winter, whatever. I cut it out. I have more energy now with a fraction of the caffeine that I used to take. I've got energy throughout the day. I no longer crash. Sorry, breathing, cold plunging, looking at your finances. Why are you looking at your finances?
Just
why?
Because it was a fearful thing.
So you're facing fear.
I was in denial, and now I realize that even that becomes as euphoric as my breathing. Going into my accounts every day, putting them in a spreadsheet. It's not sexy. And I just go and I'm like, I don't know how good at it I am, or like whether, but I realized that just by looking at my finances is, taking me out of a fearful cycle that I was in. And now I look at it and now I save, I give. And,
You plan for legacy.
Yeah, I'm planning for a legacy, dude, and it's kind of, it's something that I really look forward to doing. I think one discipline that I really need to do more is writing 15 minutes a day. Because, they say if you do 18 minutes of anything a day for a year, you're going to be ahead of,
Remember
95% of the people. And I don't want to be 95%. I want to be in that 5%. In fact, I don't want to be in that 5%. I want to be in the 1%.
Wow.
And as I look at these people, I'm not doing it because I want to be like them, but they're affecting a law. They're affecting a law. And I love, there's a guy called Brian Johnson who created something called a blueprint. And, he looks a bit like androgynous, and he's life hacked his body, and, he's aging at 0.76.
Oh, this guy.
And he said, I fired my brain. And I loved that my brain doesn't care about feelings. So I, in a sense, have fired my brain that if I don't want to do it, I do it. And at times I might not do it because I'm doing it now because I choose to. I know why. It's like as an actor, you go, oh, you've got all these idiosyncrasies that you have to unlearn. And if you want to put them back in, but know
by intent.
By intent. If I want to break a rule, I'll do it now because I'm like, I'm just going to break that rule because I know why I'm breaking it. So if I get up, like if I go to bed at 11, I might not get up at 4:30. I might get up at 5:30 and I might only do 4 of them, my 15 minutes routine, but I'm fine with that. And I do it 5 days a week. I don't do it at weekends, and I'm doing it, but I'm choosing now. Why? Life happened to me before. Now I'm choosing life.
There's this principle in physics. They saw that, and I'm going to probably butcher this for the scientific community, the two of you that are listening on this podcast that happen to love science, but they saw that, I think it was with electrons or some small particle, that the act, just observing it, changed where it was located. That awareness of a thing, observing a thing, changes a thing just through intent. We're doing the same thing through our finances. We're working with a planner who's helping us undo some bad habits and look at some things. I also carried shame. And, there was this very odd relationship, a kind of feast or famine lottery mentality around if I'm not booking a pilot, if I'm not on a TV show, in which for 10 years or more I haven't done. And so I realized there was a lot of orphan mentality and a lot of poverty spirit and all those catchphrases around this thing, but I wasn't looking at it. And I can tell you right now, we're just at the beginnings of the phase of this. I can already tell you that just looking at it is actually changing our behaviors.
Yeah.
Listen, I think it's interesting to me that as artists who are also believers, I think we've maybe forgotten that disciples have discipline, that the word disciple actually comes from having the discipline. I mean, maybe we can define a disciple as one who has the discipline of following Christ. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, the irony for me, the unexpected thing for me, is that it has completely changed me from the inside out in a way that most importantly, my wife and my children are seeing, which is the most important thing.
The most important thing.
Utterly changing my relationship with work, with the Lord, and all of these things. But I've actually begun to fall in love with them and to enjoy them. And I think this is the kind of encouragement maybe we want to leave people with, is that oftentimes when you think of disciplines, you think of all these hard things that you have to do. And make no mistake about it, there are going to be some hard things you have to do. Getting up at 4:30 some mornings, not easy.
It's a sacrifice.
It is a sacrifice. Yeah. But then all of a sudden you start to reshape your life and you go, I don't think I'm going to watch that other episode of the thing. I think I'm going to go to bed right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to eat that thing because I want to sleep well, or I want to get up and I want to work out, or I've got this goal or that goal. So instead of having the 5 coffees this month, I'm actually going to give to a missionary $30 or $40, whatever it is that you feel called to. And the Lord, He's been so gracious and so kind. And I think it's in part because, I mean, obviously He called us to make these changes in our lives for the call that He has on our life. He supplies you with this affection and love that starts to grow. I'll tell you what, I know this is going to sound crazy. I actually get up excited.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
For the first time in a really long, genuine time, I don't have to manufacture enthusiasm.
And I think it comes down to your self-love as well. Before I do all those things because there's probably a bit of self-hatred in there. The rule in business is pay yourself first. Right?
Same as the oxygen mask on a plane first, by the way.
Right.
Right? It's the same principle, man.
Think of yourself first. And people think, well, that's selfish. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to love my neighbor as I love myself, I have to love myself first before I can love my neighbor. So using that principle or that law of business, it's like, I'm going to think of myself first so that I can be sacrificial for others.
Why? Because I think, here's the deal, man. I mean, and we're fathers and we're leaders, and women and mothers have to do the same thing. My wife has to get up and take care of herself, because when she doesn't, then she's unable to really. The picture that comes to mind is that we have to become harbors, and the only way that you can be a harbor is to have peace around that. Harbors actually have to be sheltered from storms. It's that principle that we've heard preach of Jesus in the storm. I mean, the reason why He could calm the storm was because He carried peace.
Exactly.
You can't calm chaos with chaos.
No, and His life was completely by design. I want peace. So like before I would just leave clothes around. And I'm like, why do I do that? Like there's no reason to be messy. So now there are no clothes left. Everything is folded and put away.
Yeah, but have you gone as far as Beckham? Do you have your denim shirts?
Lord, do you know what?
Your cardigans and your suits color-coded?
So I to somewhat, not like as I would love his wardrobe. Would be.
Where are your flowered print paisley jeans? Because
oh my gosh, I haven't seen those in a while. For ages. They are up there
in the vintage rack.
Yeah, in the vintage rack. But it's like I make my bed, and Claire's like, you really have changed. Because the thing is, I just don't.
It's the making of the bed that's convinced your wife. Well, I love it.
It's that. It's like I'll go and I'll do it. I'll make and there are certain things that I don't allow myself to do anymore. Like I haven't drunk for 17 months. Not a sip, not a sniff, just not interested. And those disciplines, dude, take out the rebellious spirit, and they'll show you what you're made of, and they will make you come face to face with who you are. And it's not only that I do. I have my skin routine. I dry brush every time I get out of the shower. I'm like, look, there are certain things, and it's not because it's an age thing, it's because it's a value thing.
I'm totally releasing a video clip on social of you
I dry brush when I get out of the shower, whether it's once or twice a day. It's true.
Well, I can't think of a better image to land on than you dry brushing whatever on earth that is, and with your David Beckham closet, brother. It's been awesome to see you on this journey, man, and I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you, bro. You too.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us on Storia. We hope that this episode on disciplines is a blessing to you. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and give us that 5-star review. We'll see you soon.
See you next time.